I'm coming at you live on tape from Sydney, Ohio. Sorry, time kind of snuck up on me and I wasn't ready for it. We're talking Andre the Giant. What more can be said about him? There's been documentaries made about him. There's been. Everybody's talked about Andre the Giant. Everybody will always talk about Andre the Giant. He was one of the first big stars of wrestling in the late 70s and early 80s. One of the first big, massive talents of that time. He went around to all the territories and was a huge star. But we're not talking about his life. We're not talking about his kid. We're talking about people who had a problem with him. And first person he had a problem with was Ivan Putski. Now, for those who don't remember Putski, congratulations, you're like everyone else. Now, this happened in a tag team match in '79 where it was Putski, Andre the Giant, and Ted DiBiase before he was the $1 Million Man. Back in the WWF, ran by Vince Sr., they were facing the Valiant Brothers. Andre told DiBiase, don't tag Putski, just tag me. And that's exactly what DiBiase did. And Ivan sat on the ring apron, stood on the ring apron the entire match. Another person Andre had a problem with was, of course, Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, Andre did not like working with big men. Most big men do not like working with big men. At least back then they didn't, because they were afraid they were going to take their spot. Andre was no different. He did not like working with big men. Plus, Bam Bam Bigelow came into WWF in the 80s with a big head. He bragged about how much money he was making. He thought he was a big shot. So Andre decided to knock some sense into Bam Bam Bigelow. One night, Bam Bam Bigelow was facing Andre at Madison Square Garden, and Andre just beat the living hell out of him in the ring. Now, Bam Bam Bigelow came back to the back, threw all his stuff in his suitcase, and said, I quit. The next night, he came in. He said, okay, that's what I needed. My head's clear now. And so he kind of changed Bam Bam's attitude a little bit. Another person Andre did not like working with and did not like was Macho Man Randy Savage. Now, the reason wasn't they didn't like him personally, because Randy Savage, a lot of people liked Randy Savage, but because Randy Savage used too much body oil. Now, Andre did like Randy's brother, Lanny Poffo. And so he had Lanny Poffo even try to talk Randy Savage into not using so much body oil. But Randy always said, it's my gimmick. I got to use a bunch of baby oil. It's my gimmick. I don't know what using a bunch of baby oil has to do with a gimmick. I thought his gimmick was he's the Macho Man. He likes Slim Jims. But apparently his gimmick is he uses baby oil. Because he's a baby. I don't know. And he had to do it with everyone. Now, the reason Andre didn't like him using so much baby oil was because it was hard for Andre to fit into the shower at his hotel room to wash off the baby oil. So needless to say, these two did not get along. Another person that did not get along with Andre was Kamala. Well, once again, they had the big man thing. For those who don't remember Kamala, he played a savage who was so wild and crazy he had to have a handler at ringside. and he was from Africa. Well, his character was from Africa. I think the man was actually from like Detroit. This was one of those things in the 80s that you could get away with. The reason they didn't get along was because Andre, according to Kamala, had a bad temper and was actually kind of an asshole and disrespected fans. So Kamala took it upon himself to beat Andre up in the ring. Now, Andre was pissed, of course, and they never got along. And Kamala actually, at one point, demanded an apology from Andre, which Andre refused. So Kamala pulled a gun on him. And Andre then apologized. Kamala continued to carry the gun just in case Andre decided to take a piece of Kamala's ass. I think personally, Andre could have probably just bet the gun with his own hand, but Andre didn't. And they never made up. Now, another person Andre didn't get along with was, of course, the Big Boss Man. Once again, this comes down to a big man not liking another big man, plus the Big Boss Man worked stiff, which means he punched you for real. And Andre didn't like that. So Andre would just beat Big Boss Man up for real. Now, another person Andre didn't get along with at first was Jake the Snake Roberts. When they had a match in LA, Andre just blocked everything Jake did. He didn't let Jake get in any offense. Jake went to the back and pretty much chewed out Andre. And Andre had him sit down and told him, okay, we're good. You manned up. You stood up to me. And after that, they got along great. So sometimes Andre would do that to you just to see if you'd stand up to him. Now, a person Andre absolutely hated was Big John Studd. Now, you wouldn't think that considering they worked the first WrestleMania together, but they hated each other. Not just because Studd was a big man, but because Studd made a remark that, in a promo that Andre was just a freak and not a wrestler. And Andre took deep offense to that because Andre had gigantism and Big John Studd didn't, and that's what Big John Studd was referring to. And Andre took deep offense to it. So Andre, on every occasion he faced Big John Studd, he just beat the tar out of him. Now, another person Andre didn't get along with was another black man in Bad News Brown. For those who don't remember Bad News Brown, his gimmick was he was so surly tempered that he didn't get along with anybody, even the other heels. And I guess he was like that in real life too. Now, he heard Andre use the N-word on a bus trip and demanded Andre apologize, which he did. And then he heard Andre use another racial derogatory term. And so he got in Andre's face. And they almost got in a fight backstage, which I'm sure Andre would have won. Now, eventually, these two did make up before Andre's death. Now, of course, one of the biggest people Andre had a problem with was Ultimate Warrior. Because, let me explain some things about Ultimate Warrior to you. Ultimate Warrior was never really trained to wrestle. When he was trained so badly that up to WWE, he just went out there, beat the tar out of people, and hit his finisher. And then WWE, they realized this, and that's why one of his main feuds, once he got the Intercontinental title, was with Rick Rude, whose job was to teach Ultimate Warrior pretty much how to wrestle and how to work a match. But because WWE strapped a rocket to his back, he never really learned this. And so when he went up against Andre, he was still beating people up and running around a mile in a minute. And Andre, being older, not liking this, he did not like the Ultimate Warrior. So one night, the Ultimate Warrior is running around a mile a minute, hitting Andre with stiff shots, and Andre just put his fist up. Ultimate Warrior ran into it, almost knocked himself out, and after that, the Ultimate Warrior started listening to Andre. Now, Andre also had a problem, surprisingly, with Hulk Hogan during Hulk Hogan's initial run in WWE in the 70s. Hulk Hogan blames it because he was arrogant and didn't respect the business. And so Andre had a problem with him. And so Hulk Hogan said he used to puke every day going to the arena, knowing he'd have to face Andre. Now, of course, when Hogan came back in the early 80s, Andre and him became good friends. Now, one of the surprising people that Andre had a problem with was, of course, Vince McMahon. You may think Andre and Vince got along great, which they did most of Andre's career, but when Vince finally told Andre needed to retire, that's when Andre had a problem with him because Andre didn't want to retire. Now, Vince took care of his wrestlers and was proud of telling them, hey, you need to slow down, or hey, you need to do this. And that's why he wanted Andre to retire, so Andre didn't tarnish his legacy. But Andre didn't want to. And Vince, in Andre's documentary on HBO, which is on Max, by the way, claimed that Andre was a special individual, but also said he didn't remember when he last talked to Andre. Well, those are some people that Andre had problems with. Pretty much anyone who was arrogant or didn't respect the business or apparently black people. Andre, though, was universally respected. He did greatly try to protect the business. And that's maybe why he knocked some sense into some people that need some sense knocked into them. Join me later this week where we will watch Pet Sematary 2, which I watched earlier today, and I surprisingly liked. Though I thought some things needed to be changed.